Kia ora, haere mai. My name's Jimmy, and I'm a training advisor for the Primary ITO, specialising in viticulture and wine growing. Hello and welcome to our viticulture training module, all about how we undertake vine canopy management. This training module has been created to help you understand some of the techniques used in the vineyard to control the growth of the vines. It also explains what effect these techniques have on the plant and consequently on the quality and quantity of the fruit that is growing. This presentation will give you some insight into what you will be doing in the vineyard. We also hope that it might inspire you to learn some more about viticulture and wine production. The presentation is narrated by Mr. Glenn Kirkwood. Glenn is a fantastic viticulture tutor at the Nelson Marlborough Institute of Technology and is a wealth of knowledge in viticulture. I sincerely wish you all the best in your time amongst the canopy, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. Ngā mihi nui.
In recent years, New Zealand wines have taken the world by storm, and wine is now one of our biggest export earners. New Zealand sells a lot of wine, and the reason it's so popular is because it's good wine, often the best in the world. You can only make the best wine if you've got the best grapes to make it with, and that's where you come in. The quality of next year's grapes depends a great deal on how good the vines are and how well they have been pruned, stripped and wrapped, all ready for the next crop. So what you do in the vineyard makes a great difference to the quality of the finished wine. Prune a vine wrong and it could take years to come right. The pruner is just as important as the grower, the viticulturalist, the winemaker and everyone else. Just like cricket or baseball or any other sport, it takes a good team to get a good result. And the pruner is the first one up to bat.
Kia ora, I'm Glenn Kirkwood and welcome to the Canopy Management webinar. During this webinar, we'll be going through things like what does a grapevine actually consist of, components of a grapevine canopy, the vineyard trellis components, what is canopy management and why do we do it, how we actually carry it out, the all-important personal protective equipment that you need to be wearing during the process, removing unwanted growth from the grapevines, what an ideal canopy actually looks like, why we don't want to have dense canopies in our grapevines, solutions to managing vine vigor, the benefits of canopy management, how grapevines actually respond to canopy management, and lastly, there's quite an extensive glossary right at the end that will have a lot of key words that will be self-explanatory or explained to you and will help you on the way. So let's get started. So what does a grapevine actually consist of? When we look at the top image, which is a cane pruned vine, you can see that there's two arms or two canes, one on the left, one on the right. And on the canes itself, you have the buds, which we count when we're pruning the vine. In between the buds, you have the internodes. In the center, right on top of the trunk, we have the crown, or what we call the head of the vine. We have renewal spurs, which should be always below your canes. We have in the trunk what's known as the scion, or the European variety. Below the scion is our rootstock, which is where the roots actually consist of, obviously. Below that, on the bottom image, we have a spur prune vine. The only difference here is that we have permanent arms which grow on the wires. And with these permanent arms, we have spurs which are positioned along these permanent arms. And with those, we have two node spurs which are located on these arms. And you can see those spaced along evenly, hopefully along the permanent arms. Before getting started on canopy management, it's a good idea to look at what a grapevine's canopy actually consists of. The major part of the grapevine's canopy is actually the shoots themselves. The actual shoot consists of leaves primarily, which are actually connected to the shoot via the petiole. The petiole is actually the stem of the leaf which is connected to the shoot. We have the shoot stems, we have the shoot tips, which are actually at the top of the shoot. Within the axis of the petiole and the shoot, you have lateral shoots, which will grow later on in the season. And opposite each of the leaves, we have tendrils. These are the parts of the grapevine that actually the grapevine uses to hold on and to allow it to climb up any structure that it can. Also included in the grapevine's canopy are the fruit and the inflorescences. These are located lower down on the shoot. The inflorescences are what become flowers, and after they flower become small fruit, and these will develop into the grapes which we harvest at harvest time. Also included is the trunk and the cordons and the canes. The canes are what the shoots will develop into as the season progresses. Once the shoot goes from green and turns brown through lignification, it then changes from being a shoot into a cane. So when we look at the trellising system, we can see here from this image that we've got two different vines. We've got a spur prune vine on the right hand side, a cane prune vine on the left. First we have the end assembly, which consists of a strainer post sticking straight up out of the ground. We have a compression brace on the inside which prevents the end assembly from being pulled over. And then inside your end assembly you have all these posts right throughout the vineyard. These posts are what's known as our intermediate posts. And the intermediate posts will have clips all the way through them. These clips are known as our foliage wire clips. These foliage wire clips are what are holding the foliage wires in place. So when you're doing your canopy maintenance throughout the season, where you're actually lifting these foliage wires to hold all the canopy in place, you'll be clipping these wires into these clips dotted along the intermediate posts. And you'll progressively get these wires higher and higher through the season till eventually you've got all the canopy situated right up through these foliage wires. And then later on, people will come through with tractors and trimmers and trim the tops and the sides. The other wire we have is the drip line wire down the bottom, where we have our irrigation line. And the drippers you can see spaced out evenly so that all of our vines are getting irrigated as well. There's one more wire which is obviously holding our vines in place. This is known as our fruiting wire. What is canopy management and why do we carry it out? It is a series of techniques and procedures that we carry out on an annual basis to maximize the interception of light and to optimize photosynthesis for the grapevines. And its aim is to ensure good circulation within the grapevine's canopy to minimize the amount of disease that grapevines contract. It also provides a balance between the fruit and shoot growth. We want to optimize the amount of growth from the shoots so that we can actually allow the grapevine to concentrate its efforts into ripening the fruit so we have optimal fruit at harvest time. Here are a few key words which I'll just add a little more to. Shoot devigoration is all about pointing the shoots downwards as this pulls the growth out of the shoots. Grapevines don't like to actually have their shoots pulled down because it actually takes the actual growth out of them. Shoots versus canes, self-explanatory in that a shoot basically is green and a cane is brown. So An actively growing shoot through the early part of the season will be green, but as it gets towards winter, it starts to do what we call lignify. And as it lignifies, it goes from green to yellow and progressively comes slightly darker and darker and darker till it turns brown. And once it turns to complete brown in winter, it's then defined as a cane. Your fruiting zone is that strip of fruit from the fruiting wire up to about 30 centimeters, and it runs right along the row, and that is your fruiting zone. Whereas lateral growth is where the lateral buds are stimulated into growth by taking the shoot tips out of the shoots by trimming through the latter part of the season. These lower nodes are always stimulated when the shoot tips or apical meristems are removed. Personal protective equipment is essential. You must have personal protective equipment when you're carrying out any canopy maintenance or management within your vineyard. Safety glasses are a must because you only get one pair of eyes, so you need to look after them. Sun hats need to protect you from the harsh New Zealand sun. You need to protect not only your face, but your ears and the back of your neck as well. Gloves to protect your hands, because some of this work is very laborious, very hard, and you don't want blisters, because if you've got blisters, you can't work. Ideally, you would like to have work boots or work shoes, but any closed-in footwear will generally be okay when working in the vineyards. Sunscreen. Apply sunscreen regularly. At any break that you have through the day, be it morning tea, lunchtime, afternoon tea, make sure you're reapplying your sunscreen. Water. Stay hydrated. Drink plenty of it. Make sure that you're always drinking water. Stay hydrated and you'll find that your workday will progress so much better. What are the things we need to do to remove unwanted growth? The first is shoot thinning. What we do is we go through and remove unwanted shoots. The ones that we target first off are water shoots and suckers. Then we look at any doubles and triple shoots, which will be explained to you once you get out into the vineyards. Shoot trimming to reduce the height and the sides of the canopy so that there's not too much congestion, not over row shading. Shoot devigoration, which I just spoke about in the key words, basically folding the shoots down to pull the vigor out of them. Wire lifting is where we move those wires, which I talked about earlier, move them up into position so that we can position the shoots in an upward position. Leaf plucking is where we actually remove all those leaves from the fruit zone that we spoke about earlier. Take sometimes up to 60-70% of the leaf out of that fruit zone to allow light and air into the fruit zone, reduces pesticide use, reduces fungal infections. And trellising, changes that are made to increase the overall canopy leaf area and reduce the canopy density. All great things to do with canopy maintenance and management. Generally, you'll find that all vineyard managers, vineyard owners and viticulturists will all be aiming for the ideal canopy in their vineyards. And the ideal canopy is one where you have very low leaf shading of internal leaves and very few internal leaves to start with. You'll have ideal shoot positioning where the shoots are evenly spaced on the cordons and the arms on the wire. 40% canopy gaps, meaning that you can actually see through the canopy and see daylight from one side to the other. 60% fruit exposure. However, this is dependent on the variety that you're growing. If you're growing red varieties, you'll want more fruit exposure because you want the sunlight to actually get onto the fruit so that you can develop colour into those berries. If you're growing Marlborough's famous Sauvignon Blanc, then you probably don't want your fruit to be exposed that much because we're looking for those nice green flavours. Shoots that are approximately 1.2 metres in length and not too much higher than that. Once they get higher, we come along and we trim them off. Canopies that conform with the above generally have thin walls of foliage that are arranged in a vertical plane. A dense canopy has a tendency to produce all kinds of problems for vineyards. This will result in an increase in disease pressure due to poor pesticide spray penetration, poor air circulation, and an increase in humidity within the canopy. Reduced productivity due to poor bud initiation resulting from reduced light interception by the lower nodes on the shoots during flowering and lower temperatures. Inferior quality grapes due to the fruit being shaded from the sun and experiencing low light levels. The difference between open and dense canopies are generally due to dense canopies having increased shading, produces low light levels, milder temperatures within the canopy, higher humidity and very low air movements. When you compare that with an open canopy, which has very limited shading of leaves with good fruit exposure at or just below surrounding air temperature, so very near to ambient temperature, only slightly higher than surrounding air humidity, and very good airflow. There are a number of ways of managing vine vigour. The first is with shoot positioning. This can be carried out by way of 2 or 3 sets of movable foliage wires that clip into foliage wire clips on the intermediate posts. They are systematically moved throughout the growing season up along these intermediate posts and capture the foliage in generally a vertical manner. And this is generally known as vertical shoot positioning. This is carried out to ensure that the canopy intercepts as much sunlight and air movement as possible so that the vine's leaves can carry out photosynthesis. It creates a uniform shoot distribution to minimize fruit shading. It facilitates the ease of operations such as shoot trimming, leaf plucking, and later in the season when the vines go dormant, makes it much easier for pruning. It has a positive impact on fruit yield as it better enables light interception by the lower nodes during bud initiation, which we've talked about before, i.e. during flowering. One solution for managing vine vigour is shoot thinning, and this is carried out early in the season. Shoot thinning is a task that's carried out by most vineyards to remove excessive shoots from the canopy, to thin it out, make it less dense, and to avoid congestion. The major reasons for shoot thinning are for better balance between the amount of fruit and the amount of foliage that the vines are carrying. It therefore increases the sunlight into the fruit, along with increasing air movement around the fruit and the leaves, making for better penetration for your chemicals so that you can reduce the amount of pest and disease that is occurring within the canopy. It also provides better spacing for the shoots and the fruit and makes it for a more uniform canopy along the length of the canes and the cordons of your vines. It also reduces the drying time of leaves and fruit, therefore improving spray efficiency. Shoot trimming is the removal of excessive primary shoots and lateral shoot growth from the top and sides of the vines. We carry this out to prevent cross-row shading and the vines from becoming entangled with one another, along with allowing passage for both vineyard staff and machinery. Further benefits are increased exposure of the fruit to the sunlight, therefore increasing their flavour, aroma and colour development, along with allowing for better pest and disease control due to reduced humidity within the canopy. Leaf plucking is carried out on basically all varieties, be it red or white, with it being more important in our red varieties. Why? Because the red varieties require greater exposure to the sunlight so that they get better colour development. It is more concentrated in the fruiting zone, which is about 30 centimetres tall, so that you are only removing the leaves in this area. The percentage of leaves that are removed varies depending on the variety. As I alluded to, the greater number of leaves are removed from our red varieties. In the white varieties, we generally concentrate more on the eastern side of the row where they're not getting the intense afternoon sunlight. Leaves are removed from in and around the bunch zones to improve the airflow and circulation, which will therefore improve spray penetration and reduce the humidity within the canopy. This process can certainly be easily mechanised, but for the best results is best done by hand. There is also a very good YouTube video here for you to look at, so I would suggest you check it out. Here we have a few more keywords that we used within this webinar. Firstly, we have inflorescence. What are these? These are the bunches before they've even flowered and set their fruit. You'll see them emerge not long after bud burst, and as they grow they elongate, and then once they've flowered and they've set their fruit, they change from an inflorescence into a bunch. Then we have fruitfulness. What we mean by fruitfulness is the number of bunches that actually each shoot contains. Generally, in most varieties, they'll have 2 bunches per shoot, unless of course we come across Riesling, which can have up to 3 and 4 bunches per shoot, but that's somewhat unusual. Yield refers to the sheer volume of fruit that we can expect or hope to expect per hectare. So generally with our Sauvignon Blanc we're looking at around 15 tonnes per hectare, Pinot Noir maybe 8 tonnes per hectare. That's what we hope to yield. Veraison, or as it's pronounced in French, is the growth stage where the fruit changes from being really hard green berries and start to take in sugars, take in water, and start to soften. And with this, the opposite to that is they start to lose their acidity as well. So what's happening is the ripening process is beginning, and that's veraison. Lastly, the apical meristem, that's at the tip of every shoot. So what it actually is the shoot tip. And even when the lateral shoots start to shoot, they also will have an apical meristem, also known as the shoot tip. The benefits of implementing canopy management in vineyards has been proven through research and many years of vineyard management. Some of the benefits for this are improved wine quality through greater light interception onto the fruit via vertical shoot positioning and leaf removal. This allows light to penetrate deeper into the canopies. This increases grape yields due to improved bud fruitfulness due to them being exposed to direct sunlight during the inflorescence initiation stage. It's important to remember that inflorescence initiation and the actual next year's crop is initiated the year prior to the fruit being harvested. A reduction in pest and disease incidence due to improved airflow through the canopy can also be achieved, thereby reducing the internal canopy humidity and allowing better spray penetration of pesticides. Reduced cost of production due to improved ease of mechanisation can also be achieved. So, how do grapevines respond to canopy management? Well, there's only really two key ways in which grapevines respond to canopy management, with the first being by removing the apical meristem or shoot tip, which is clearly seen in the photo to your right. By removing the shoot tip, this will encourage the buds further down the shoot to spring into action or grow, therefore producing lateral growth. The other is by removing excess bunches. Now this needs to be completed prior to veraison if you wish to have any significant impact on the end product at harvest time. What you need to do is particularly concentrate on bunches that are lagging behind the others in the development. This will stimulate the vine to redirect all of its reserves into the developing bunches that are remaining.